Это долго будет, это вообще раз тогда уже человек не пользуется. Как я. Нет, если надо, тогда уже надо там это самое. Да, нет, не надо. Сейчас это понимаю. Я понял, не понимаю. Ладно. Почту. Ну типа того, да, уезжай отсюда. Ты смеешься? Ну давай, ищи, я понял. Ищи. Ладно, я посолю, пожалуй. Пока. Я каждый день посолю. Ну и чё? Народ, типа это ну, не. А, видишь? А, наоборот, будет, ну, локация, наоборот. Ладно, вот что я хотел. Надо понимать, что это немножечко апдейтед, 50-е годы. То есть это 100 лет назад он учился. Он уже не учился, а играл 100 лет назад. То есть это 100 лет назад. Я не пел так, нет, не пел. Не пел. Все, не пел я. Ром. Cool. Говорит, сегодня глупости, говорит. Чё ты? Нет, не боюсь. Нет, наоборот. Ну типа того, да. Нет, этим что? Да нет, этим ты что? Нет. Бриллиант ты видишь там. Нет. Не надо этого. Вот что хотели, ты думал. Как мимо дорогу. Нет, серьезно. Ну да. Ну надо. Нет. Нет, это ужас, просто ужасно это все дело. Че? Куда ты будешь? Не надо, может. Нет. Что это значит? Так это странно выглядит, наверное. Сейчас смешно, что ли? Я говорю, смешно. Ауч. Она молчит. Нет, вот нам, да. Историю тебе. Нам, да. Вот историю. Нет, червак. Вот это и есть то же самое. Конец надо. Это есть оно самое, когда немного руки. Так не надо руки. Что это? Нет, наоборот, не так. Зачем мне это не нужно, я понял. Шмаги не шмаги. Ой, не знаю. Нет, графика твоя там просто такая страшная. Нет, а чего они не убираются-то? Нет, наоборот, типа это. Я не знаю, что это как. Не знаю, ты должен продолжать их. Постоянно еженедельные события, что ли? Пошли у нас. Музыку, да. Ну, ладно. Ну нет, наоборот, болеет, если так нет, видите, какой дело. Так нет, не болеет. Ну ладно, я тебе эти документы. Ты чё, блин? Так нет, наоборот.
The day before the election, and it is one of the worst days of the U.S. pandemic so far. The nation's 7-day average of new cases has now hit 81,336. This is nearly double where it was just a month ago when the new case average was just under 42,000. There are 35 states that are seeing more new infections this past week than the week before. And now the modeling team often cited by the White House is forecasting nearly 400,000 COVID deaths by February. The nation's leading infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, told the Washington Post this, quote, "We're in for a whole lot of hurt. It's not a good situation. All the stars are aligned in the wrong places as you go into the fall and winter season, with people congregating at home indoors. It's not a good situation. All the stars are aligned in the wrong places as you go into the fall and winter season, with people congregating at home indoors. You could not possibly be positioned more poorly." Well, the president continues to falsely claim that the U.S. is rounding the turn on the virus. We are not. And now President Trump is suggesting that he might fire Dr. Anthony Fauci. As he complained about media coverage of the virus at his rally in Florida overnight, here's how the crowd responded.
Don't tell anybody, but let me wait till a little bit after the election. I appreciate the advice.
I want to bring in our senior medical correspondent, Elizabeth Cohen, to talk about this. The crowd there chanting, "Fire Fauci," and the president responding, "Let me wait until a little bit after the election." Can the president fire Dr. Fauci?
You know, first I want to say, what a coward, right? If President Trump really wanted to fire Fauci, he should have the guts, and guts is my second choice of words, he should have the guts to do it now, right? The fact that he's saying, I won't do it now, speaks volumes about him and about how popular and effective Dr. Fauci is. So technically, Brianna, technically our CNN reporting tells us that the president cannot fire Fauci. Could he pressure Dr. Fauci's boss, who is named Dr. Francis Collins, could he pressure Dr. Collins to fire Dr. Fauci? That's possible, but Dr. Collins said, I won't do it. He's been asked and he won't do it. The two men are very close. They have worked together for many, many years. Now, could the president pressure Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar to orchestrate the firing of Fauci? Technically, maybe he could, but I think it's important to remember Alex Azar is an attorney. He's a professional with a long career behind him. Would he really, and hopefully ahead of him, would he really want his epitaph to read, you know, Alex Azar, I'm the idiot and the coward who fired Dr. Fauci, the smartest guy in the room? I would imagine not. Now, to take it a step further, in the middle of a pandemic, right? And to take it a step further, could President Trump, you know, get rid of Azar, get rid of Collins, put in stooges who would fire Fauci? That's possible. And if it were any other president, Brianna, I would say, no way. There is no way that's going to happen. But with President Trump, when he gets into one of his little, you know, childish, baby-like temper tantrums, he does weird things. So, you know, I wouldn't put anything past him. Brianna?
All right, well, let's hope that the urge wears off. We'll see. Elizabeth Cohen, thank you so much.
The U.S. Postal Service just reported its third consecutive day of fewer on-time ballot deliveries. It reinforces the warning that we've heard for weeks now. Some mail-in ballots may not arrive in time to get counted. And those concerns are intensifying in Florida because of this new report from the Miami Herald. Dozens of undelivered ballots were found at one Miami-Dade post office. Now, the Postal Service plans to sweep other mail facilities in Miami-Dade for ballots. I want to bring in Rick Wilson, Republican strategist, co-founder of the Lincoln Project. He is also, for the purposes of this conversation, a Florida native and a 30-year veteran of politics and campaigns. Cornell Belcher is an MSNBC political analyst, pollster on both of President Obama's campaigns. Rick, let me start with you there. In Florida, how concerned are you about the delays that we're learning about in key battleground states, especially Florida?
Well, obviously, in my home state, we've got a long-running problem that, you know, all elections in Florida, all statewide elections turn out to be very close. This one is going to be very close. And the fact that the thing over the summer that Louis DeJoy and the president and others conspired to do, which was to slow down postal delivery, to slow down mail systems, to break the mail-in ballot system in some way, at least tangentially, seems to be playing out now. We're seeing these ballots pop up in numerous places, not only in Florida, but across the country. And, you know, it is one thing that we really have to, as a country, address and not let Donald Trump come out on election night and say, we're done, I'm done, I won, when the ballots haven't been either counted or found. And so I think it's incumbent upon the Postal Service and the U.S. government to focus on this, and for no one to accept the results of this election until we have the ballots counted and in hand. If they're laying around in boxes in postal service centers, that is not something that we should tolerate as a functioning democracy.
Cornell, NBC reports that as Biden sees multiple paths to win, Democrats are facing, quote, crippling fear of a 2016 redo. As a pollster, Cornell, what state are you most worried about? What state are you most confident in?
Well, you're worried about all of them, and you shouldn't take any of them for granted. I mean, on the Obama campaign, I was part of an extraordinary team, but we took nothing for granted. But I do have to put some context in that question you just asked, because we have to also, because the context here is this, Greg. Mitch McConnell had blocking the House bill for $25 billion to go to the United States Post Office. for over 170 days. So this isn't by accident, right? This is how we lose democracy. This is how voter suppression works. It's not people necessarily standing at the polls anymore with guns or a poll tax. It is these sort of things is how we lose democracy. So we got to put some context around that. Look, that said, I do understand a lot of hand wringing by my friends on the left. However, I think to a certain extent we've over-exaggerated the lessons of 2016. 2016 was a phenomenon. Can it happen again? Yes. Lightning can strike twice in one place, but it's really not probable. Look, the fundamentals for Joe Biden are as sound as any challenger you've seen in the last decade or so. I mean, quite frankly, Obama's lead was not structurally as sound as Joe Biden's lead. And look, I was listening to you talk to the reporter talked to that woman in Florida when she was talking about climate change. Even if you look at sort of around the issues from climate change to healthcare to dealing with the pandemic, Joe Biden has a solid lead on all those issues.
Rick, hanging over all of this, of course, is a pandemic. President Trump, in a rally in Florida late Sunday, suggested that he may fire Dr. Anthony Fauci after the election. That, as a closing message, does that appeal to a large swath of the Florida electorate? Am I missing something?
Maybe to like the Florida Association of Funeral Home Directors, but this is a president who has been doing these COVID-palooza rallies. And we've already seen evidence from over the weekend that in these COVID-palooza rallies, and we've already seen evidence from over the weekend that they're causing a spread of COVID and deaths from COVID. And from over the weekend that they're causing a spread of COVID and deaths from COVID. And one of the fundamental underpinnings of Trumpism is a hatred of expertise, a hatred of science, a hatred of the people who tell Trump his impulses aren't right, his madcap conspiracy theories aren't right. And Fauci represents two things that Trump hates most: expertise and popularity. Dr. Anthony Fauci is much more popular than Donald Trump with the American people because he's credible, because he's smart, because he knows what he's talking about. And so Trump, of course, hates that. And so threatening to fire him in the last weekend appeals to the narrowest slice of his own base, where they believe that Trump is some sort of godlike figure. But for most Americans, for most people seeing that clip, I think it's as it convinces them and confirms to them that this is an unserious man who is taking a very serious pandemic very lightly and treating it in a sort of cavalier manner.
Thanks for checking out GuitarTricks.com recently. We're running a special right now that's really cool. This is the best time to join Guitar Tricks. For a short time when you sign up, you'll get an awesome discount on an annual subscription when you use code ONLY.
President Trump won in 2016 in part by flipping 3 states that had picked a Democrat for president for more than 30 years. We're, of course, talking about Pennsylvania, but we're also talking about Wisconsin and Michigan. In Pennsylvania, take a look here. Trump won by just more than 44,000 votes. In Wisconsin, it was more than 22,000 votes. In Michigan, the president won by a razor-thin margin of about 10,000 votes. You add up all of those folks, that wouldn't even come close to filling the big house at the University of Michigan for a Saturday afternoon game. Let's check in with our reporters in those states. NBC's Cal Perry is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Steve Patterson in Detroit, Michigan. But we start with MSNBC senior national correspondent Chris Jansen. Chris is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, and this is ground zero for exactly those voters you're talking about, the ones that flipped from Democrat to Donald Trump, white working class men, union voters. I am in Lackawanna County, which shocked everybody when Donald Trump kept this deeply blue area close. Next door, where you just saw Kamala Harris land in Luzerne County, it was an absolute blowout. People could not believe how many voters Donald Trump was able to turn. These folks are the
people that they hope will help turn it back. These are union members who have been going door to door in neighborhoods like this. We'll let you go and do your thing. Go ahead. They've been knocking on literally thousands of doors for unions in this area. Eric Schubert has been going door to door with some of them. Let me ask you, because you know how many of your fellow union members flipped to Donald Trump last time. When they tell you they're thinking about voting for him again, what's your argument?
Well, the argument is like, you know, as public sector employees, we already got hit hard. With the Janus case, that made members, we don't even have to represent, they don't have to belong to the union, and we still got to represent them. I mean, our members during this whole time, this whole COVID, have been essential employees. They've been there on the front lines, meaning correction officers, nurses, transportation. We've been out in the front line.
Do you feel like you're getting through to those folks?
Well, we're trying to get through to them about, you know, the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act was passed in May in the House, and, you know, nothing is coming back to these essential workers. And when you put it to that way, I mean, they're starting to understand. But hopefully we can get out to them in that part of it.
24 hours or less to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll let you go and knock on doors. Let me tell you why it's so particularly important here, Craig. And that is because unlike most of the battleground states where the majority of votes have already been cast, not the case here. The majority of votes are going to be cast tomorrow. So they're going to be knocking on doors of their fellow union members who they know have not voted. Up until the last minute, I talked to Bob Casey, who probably knows this place better than anybody as the senator. He tells me all Joe Biden has to do is keep it closer. He's not going to hit Obama numbers, but he has to keep it closer here in Lackawanna and in Luzerne County than Hillary Clinton was able to 4 years ago. Now let me pass it on to my friend Cal Perry, who is in Milwaukee. Cal?
Hey, Chris, thank you very much. Obviously, Democrats remember what happened 4 years ago, less than 25,000 votes, the margin in a Donald Trump victory, and so they vowed to take it more seriously. Joe Biden has been here 3 times in his general election campaign. Now, this is happening in a hot zone during a pandemic, and we've seen voting numbers through the roof. More than 1.8 million people have already voted in this state, 500,000 in person, 1.2 mail-in, and the game is simple for Democrats. Run the numbers up in places like Milwaukee and in Madison. For the president, it's about those rural areas, as it is across the country. Democrats hoping that those early voting numbers, an indication of the enthusiasm, but a word of caution and of warning, we probably
Опа! А, не так, не так. Опаньки. Ну, всё тут знаем. Брмр-мр. Эй! пойдете? А, да. Что они там себе писать? Ну, это главное самое. Вот я напишу, мне это все рисует. Ну, как бы. Ну, как? Что ты хочешь от меня? После этого докажи, как ты какой-то надо. Кого пойдете? Ладно. Мос попапос. Мос попус. Мос мопус. Сракос какос. Нет, это смешно же, это не филономорон. Ну и ладно, мне то так и бывает. Вот и все. Еще попало там, знаешь. Хорошая качалка, это я понимаю. Ладно, зато такой пол. Что это значит такое? Период. Движешься просто с ним. Наоборот, наоборот, да почему? Ну нет, наоборот, ну нам, да. Наоборот. Да наоборот. Ну чё, ногти, что дальше? Ногти, чё? Зад болит. Да больно. Нет, не понял, все наоборот, нет, наоборот, наоборот. Нормально. Так наоборот. Нет, наоборот. Ой, ладно. Да нет. Вот это имеется в виду. Вот это. Даже зависит. Это вообще. Нет, это так. Спать-то неохота будет. Я это не заказывал, что это такое? Сейчас. Чего? Нет, наоборот, так нет. Так нет, наоборот. Сядь, говорят, так нет, это какая наша разница? Не знаю, просто у тебя интересно, как тебе уже интересно все. Да, качок хреново, хреново, потому что нет. А, вот так, да. Ты не шибишься, все. Селедки. У меня вот это я себя сверху старался. Вот это я не Нет. Пиши себе это все. Куда нет, о себе пиши все, только нет, я не понимаю все, о себе пиши все, да. Нет, ну нет, наоборот. Нет, наоборот. Ну вот надо. Типа да. Чтобы ушло, просто наоборот. Что мне о себе написать? Нет, ну нам вот это и все. Нет, так нет. Да ну вас. Нам вот это, ну, что это? Какое дело? Так.
Probably won't have results here in Wisconsin until Wednesday. One of those reasons in the city of Milwaukee, where we expect very high voting numbers, they count those early votes separately. Now over to my colleague Steve Patterson in Michigan.
Cal, good morning from my home state of Michigan, my home city of Detroit, in a place that is very central to the democratic process right now. This is the basement of the TCF Center in downtown Detroit. Take a look at this. Already hundreds of poll workers processing these early absentee ballots. And I say processing and not tabulating and not counting, because that is a process that doesn't happen until tomorrow morning. So it is likely that we will not get the full picture of what happens in the state of Michigan until the end of the week. But everybody, Democrats, are still haunted by the specter of what happened here in 2016. Very central to the democratic process right now. This is the basement of the TCF Center in downtown Detroit. Take a look at this. Already hundreds of poll workers processing these early absentee ballots. And I say processing and not tabulating and not counting, because that is a process that doesn't happen until tomorrow morning. So it is likely that we will not get the full picture of what happens in the state of Michigan until the end of the week. But everybody, Democrats, are still haunted by the specter of what happened here in 2016. You want to talk about razor thin margins? 0.23% was the difference between Trump and Clinton in that election. 2-3% of what happened here in 2016. You want to talk about razor thin margins? 0.23% was the difference between Trump and Clinton in that election. So there is a renewed emphasis on shoring up those city centers where there is a big blue block. Here in Detroit, everybody knows what's going to happen. This is 80% black, this city. You're going to see more than 90% for Joe Biden when those votes are tabulated. The question is, will Detroiters come out and vote? Already the city clerk raising the red flag here. She's now projecting about a 50% turnout overall. That's less than what happened in 2008. It's less than what happened in 2012. It's just slightly over what happened in 2016. So there is a huge emphasis on getting out the black vote, particularly young black males, which is a tall hill to climb when you're factoring in the fact that coronavirus is ravaging this state, it's ravaging this city, and it's ravaging the black community, which is right here in Metro Detroit. Send it back to you, Craig.
All right, Steve Patterson with an up-close look at democracy in action there. Good to see so many volunteers in the basement there. Steve, thank you. Chris, thank you. Cal, thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe.
Прям такие предпочитания вообще. Зарплаты.
Ouch! Ow! 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 Yeah! A record 93 million Americans have already cast their ballot ahead of Election Day. Now, that's a sign of a vibrant democracy. But not everyone wants to see high turnout.
They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again.
Now, typically candidates try to win the most.
Get elected in this country. Again.
Now, typically candidates try to win the most votes on Election Day. It's called democracy. But there is a dark history of an alternate approach.
I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Now, that quote from conservative activist Paul Weichert gives away the game. And make no mistake, barring a blowout, Team Trump is planning to contest the election in court and possibly declare victory regardless of the outcome. Trump likes to describe his supporters as a silent majority.
Call it silent majority. A silent majority. The silent majority.
Which is why it's interesting that he doesn't look like he thinks he's going to win a majority, because he's never been a majority president. In 2016, he lost the popular vote by a historic amount, and he's the only president in the history of Gallup never to be above 50% approval. Now, Trump is the first incumbent in history not to really try to win the popular vote. Now, according to the Center for Public Integrity, Republicans have set aside some $20 million on more than 300 court battles, all trying to make it more difficult to vote during a pandemic in an attempt to win that narrow electoral college victory. They've sued to block the county pandemic in an 300 court battles, all trying to make it more difficult to vote during a pandemic. Center for Public Integrity, Republicans have set aside some $20 million on more in an attempt to win that narrow day. They've limited ballot drop-off, sued to block the counting of mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day. They've limited ballot drop-off boxes to 1 per county in Texas and tried to invalidate nearly 127,000 votes in Houston. In Pennsylvania, election officials have accused the Trump campaign of trying to suppress mail-in votes, while the Democratic AG says they're intimidating early voters. And court-ordered post office data shows a big-time declines in swing state mail-in ballots being delivered on time. Now, all this is happening against the drumbeat of Trump trying to sow doubts about our elections by baselessly proclaiming there will be widespread fraud, an idea being amplified by Russian disinformation. All of this is an attempt to suppress the popular vote and create maximum chaos around the election, which Trump hopes to take advantage of. Now, Axios reports that Trump is planning to declare victory on election night regardless of how many votes still have to be counted. Now, of course, Trump denies this, but listen closely to his advisor yesterday.
President Trump will be ahead on election night, probably getting 280 electorals, somewhere in that range. And then they're going to try to steal it back after the election.
Got that? They're planning to call the full and fair counting of votes stealing the election. Well, if anything, it would be the president trying to steal the election, because it isn't really over until every eligible vote is counted. Meanwhile, a loser declaring themselves the winner doesn't change reality, but it would open the door to conflict and a constitutional crisis. Trump's voter suppression strategy reveals political weakness and a deep discomfort with democracy. But one thing's for sure, this election will tell us whether his passionate supporters really are a silent majority or just a loud minority. And that's your reality check.
Thanks for checking out GuitarTricks.com recently. For a short time, when you sign up, you'll get an awesome discount on an annual.
We do have some breaking news. A judge has just rejected Republican efforts to halt early vote counting in Nevada's Clark County, which includes Las Vegas. I want to get straight to those details right now. We have CNN's Erica Hill, who is in Las Vegas for us. Erica, this has to do with verifying voters' signatures. Explain this to us.
Yeah, that was part of what was
County, which includes Las Vegas. I want to get straight to those details right now. We have CNN's Erica Hill, who is in Las Vegas for us. Erica, this has to do with verifying voters' signatures. Explain this to us.
Yeah, that was part of what was brought up in this suit that was filed by the Trump campaign and the Republican Party here in Nevada, which, as you mentioned, Brianna, the judge shot down. This is a heavily Democratic county, as you know. Of the 1.8 active voters in Nevada, 1.2 million active voters are here in Clark County. The judge denied this on all fronts, saying that, in fact, the party didn't even have the standing to bring this issue. At issue, an automated signature matching machine that is used here in the county. They had issues with that. It verifies about 30% of the ballots that come through. They also had concerns about what observers were allowed to see, whether they could see signature matching, and whether that process was robust enough. In addition to that, there were questions, as you point out, about the ballot processing, which started here on October 20th. The judge, again, denying this entire request. Everything will move forward as it has been doing since October 20th here in the county. Said that they showed no evidence that there were any issues with with signatures either not being validated properly or that in any way impacted a ballot. We should point out that there has been a response from which started here on October 20th. The judge, again, denying this entire request. Everything will move forward as it has been doing since October 20th here in the county. Said that they showed no evidence that there were any issues with with signatures either not being validated properly or that in any way impacted a ballot. We should point out that there has been a response from the Nevada GOP saying that they are evaluating an expedited appeal to the Nevada Supreme Court. But as of right now, nothing is going to change what's happening behind me. And I should point out, early voting and mail-in ballots. Remember, this for the first time in Nevada, a mail-in ballot was sent to every single active voter. The totals for those ballots have now surpassed all ballots cast in 2016, Brianna.
And there's a federal judge who has stepped in, Erica, ordering the U.S. Postal Service to take what they're calling extraordinary measures to deliver mail-in ballots on time so they can be counted. What does that mean for the postal system and for postal workers?
Yeah, that's right. We know this is different depending on the state, how and when these ballots are processed, what those postmarks mean, how long they have to arrive afterwards. So to your point, for the third day in a row, we're seeing a drop-off in on-time delivery for first-class mail. So this judge said that it is now mandatory that express mail be used, which guarantees delivery within 1 or 2 days for ballots that are traveling long distances. Any ballot that is mailed locally needs to be processed that very same day. At the latest, it needs to be delivered the following morning. And they're really staying on top of this with plant managers. They want to have regular updates. And so we'll be looking at this, especially in those states, especially Pennsylvania, as I know you've been talking about all day, Michigan, North Carolina, just some of the states where there's a real focus today.
All right, Erica Hill, thank you so much for that live for us from Las Vegas. Hundreds of thousands of active duty troops and their families are overseas and are voting by mail. The laws in 29 states and the District of Columbia allow military ballots to be counted even if they arrive after November 3rd, as the president is insisting that all counting should stop on election night.
I think it's a terrible thing when ballots can be collected after an election.
McClatchy's D.C. military correspondent, Tara Kopp, is with me now. Tara, you've done some great reporting on what this all would mean for folks in the military and their families. I'm wondering if you can just explain to us, as the president is calling for votes to not be counted after the election, what that would mean for service members who are away from their home of residence, from their state of residence, what that would mean for them in getting their vote counted.
It could disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of military personnel who are casting their vote from overseas. You know, there's 172,000 service members deployed overseas right now and 19,000 National Guard or reservists. When